It's definitely a beautiful Friday right here on the Real Talk Live show. And my name is Enoch. We are here again to discuss and have a conversation about something that relates to us, something that's definitely going to ensure that we make better and informed decisions at the end of this conversation. And today I'm joined by two amazing ladies who are going to have this conversation with me. I'm pretty much sure because you guys have been buzzing about this topic ever since it was announced about signs in an abusive relationship. So now might be the best time for you to tag along a friend, to share this link with a partner, and to share this link with anyone else that you'd love to actually have this conversation with us today. So please ensure you also follow us on our social media platforms, because this conversation is about to get lovely. And I'm sure you've noticed that it's no longer the Zambian youth platform, but it is the youth platform. So the ladies I'm with today are going to introduce themselves, and we'll start with Linda, and then we'll move on. Linda, what should the people know about you as we start this conversation?
Oh, my name is Linda Monde. I'm a public health scientist by profession. Pretty much.
Interesting, Linda. And Ruth?
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Ruth Hachibi, and I am a youth and mental health activist.
Thank you so much for being here. And of course, not forgetting William,
Thank you.
our sign language interpreter for this conversation today. As a matter of inclusivity, that all of us are able to have this amazing and wonderful conversation. Also, feel free to send in your contributions, your thoughts, your asks, so that all of us are able to move at the same pace. I'll say it again. Now is the best time to share that link to a friend, to a colleague, a partner, that we get to have this conversation, that at the end of it, we are informed and are able to make informed, better decisions. Colleagues, the topic for conversation today is signs of an abusive relationship. And if you're watching, you've either been in a relationship or you are in one, or you're yet to experience one. But this still remains a relevant conversation for us as young people to have, that we therefore know exactly what we're getting ourselves into, probably maybe understand better our partners and see how best we can find a solution and move forward in a very healthy manner. So I have a couple of questions with me that we're actually going to use to have this dialogue with the two colleagues. The first one being, is it really a need to recognize signs of an abusive relationship? Like, if you carefully think about it, do you think it's even important to sit down and reflect on, hey, are there any signs in this relationship that I am actually, that will indicate that it's an abusive relationship? I'll start with Linda.
Yeah, so I feel it's important for people to actually learn to identify these signs, and because it helps people seek help and support at the right time before things escalate and get worse. And also, it's also when you start to recognize the signs in a relationship, you are going to see it's a potential exit from a harmful relationship. So it's more like saving yourself from further damage because you've seen the signs, so you obviously get up and leave. And then if you can't leave on your own, you're going to seek support at the right time to leave before you get harmed or things escalate.
That's very interesting. Ruth, what's your take on the urgency or the importance of recognizing the signs of an abusive relationship?
Okay, it's very important to recognize the signs of an abusive relationship because many a times that people tend to overlook certain things. The first sign that I would actually, or that I have witnessed people go through, is the fact that people who are in abusive relationships, their partners, their abusers tend to isolate them from the things they love. Like they'll first start to isolate them from their friends, their family, social gatherings, and just try to maybe isolate them and be a pawn in their own play. So I feel like it's important to first recognize those signs, and it will be an exit for you, just like Linda said, and it is very important.
So, interesting enough, in as much as we're talking about the importance of recognizing the signs of an abusive relationship, I think to the viewers out there, and I think to all of us, it would be of good importance for us to also understand things from different perspectives. I would love to understand, based on your knowledge, experience, and thought, on what you think constitutes an abusive relationship. Like, what would you point at and say, you know what, because of A, B, C, and D, that's probably an abusive relationship, or maybe I'm in an abusive relationship because of A, B, C, and D. I'll start with you again, Linda.
For me, my take is an abusive relationship involves a pattern of behaviors where one seeks to control, dominate, and harm the other partner emotionally, physically, even sexually. So I feel like it's when a partner has a consistent behavior of a pattern that's harmful for the other partner. It may be emotionally, physically, or sexually.
Interesting. That's absolutely interesting. Ruth, what's your take on what constitutes an abusive relationship?
Okay. I feel like what actually constitutes an abusive relationship, people tend to overlook a lot of things, like I said. And you'd find you have a partner who just wants to have like control over you and whatever you're doing. Like they just want you to be, to do whatsoever they want. It's just a pattern, it's a consistent pattern that's there. They want to be in control of everything you are doing, and they're treating you in a bad way, that they're even making you feel as though you are actually in the wrong, but they are the ones who are in the wrong. So I feel like, yeah, that's what constitutes it.
So Ruth speaks of narcissistic behavior, right? Which is actually interesting because most people will be narcissists and they don't know they're narcissists. That's that's actually interesting. But I would love to find out. In any sphere, there are always things that would be rather common that we can point to, right? So um, you've spoken of the fact that when someone is controlling to a point where you actually feel as though you're in the wrong, but you know you're the right one, and Linda also spoke to an aspect. But aside these, are there any other pointers that are common that you may point at that can be nowadays are called red flags? Like they're like, oh, that's a red flag for me. Oh, that's a like what would you point to? Like what are the common signs that you may actually speak to of an abusive relationship? And how is it that people would actually easily overlook this? I'll begin with you, Ruth, then I'll go to Linda.
Okay. I feel like the other thing that people usually overlook in a relationship is the fact that there are verbal insults. Like a partner will just come and tell you to say, okay, so you want to do what? You don't even look good. Your body isn't even good. Like, don't do this and that. And for them, it's okay because, I mean, they're abusers. They just want to demean you and to just belittle you in everything that you do. And people tend to overlook that. So many things happen. Like at first, I even talked about isolation. They'll try to isolate you and tell you to say, don't go out. Like, I don't like that friend of yours. Don't even have a conversation with that person. And people tend to overlook that and they'll just say, no, I feel like he loves me in such a way that he doesn't want me to be associating with clubs, to be associating with people, to be associating with a certain friend because that friend is not good for me. But actually, that's an abuser. That's an abusive relationship, because somebody who loves you will actually encourage you to even just be, unless in other circumstances where your friend is just like, okay, yeah, you can even see that, okay, this friend is not good for me in such circumstances. But abusers tend to isolate their victims and, yeah, just verbal insults. And the other thing I would actually just add on is the fact that there's excessive jealousy, like the jealousy that you just can't even handle. Jealousy is okay, and I would hear a lot of people say in relationships to say, okay, yes, jealousy is there, there should be jealousy, but excessive jealousy, that's a red flag, and one should look out for.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Linda, right? But after Linda, I have a question for you. You mentioned something that I want to find out. Then after that, we'll go to the comment section because I can already see it's buzzing with comments and so many other things. So, Linda, what's your take on this?
Okay, so Ruth has mentioned most of the things. So, from a controlling behavior, it's obviously going to go into isolation. But then it's also important to understand that these people know what your weakness is. So, most abusive partners are going to be very manipulative people because they know where your soft spot is and they know where to hit. So, at the end of the day, there are people that are going to use your weakness to manipulate you. So, there are people that are going to use your weakness to manipulate you.
Is it just me or we cannot hear Linda anymore?
I think we've lost her.
Okay, so while we wait for Linda to come back on track, I have an ask for you. You had mentioned that
Okay.
someone may reach a point of um, in them being controlling, right? You had mentioned that they would reach a point of telling you you can't hang out with that one and with that one and with that one. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you also mentioned that if you don't see that the person they're telling you to stop being found with is the wrong person, then that's probably a red flag, right? So correct me in response if this statement is not true. But don't you think also that it's not all the time that we as individuals know who the actual right person is? It might be that the other person actually knows something about the person that we don't know, or there's that kind of a thing. Just highlight more on this.
Okay, I feel like isolation is different. Like you can isolate me and tell me to say, okay, listen, um, listen, babe, listen, this friend of yours did this and that, and I didn't really like it. There are certain ways in which you can talk to someone, and isolation is different, like I said. You just can't wake up today and tell me to say, I don't like that friend. Give me a reason why you don't want me to hang out with that person. Just because I don't want you to be hanging around. Are you really sure that's are you really sure that's okay with someone just doing that? After all of the sudden just waking up and telling you, say, I don't want you to be hanging around with that particular person because I don't like the person. It's
So
not just, yes,
so you're saying
it's just not.
the issue is in how you communicate it. Because someone will be as stubborn as just stop doing that without giving an actual reason, without you having a normal conversation, but they're busy flaring up in emotions without anything. They just give out instructions and everything. I do understand
Mhm.
that. I absolutely get you. Absolutely get you. We have a lot of comments right now, and we're going to go to that because apparently the comment section is just interesting with so many comments right now. So we're going to hear views. And Linda is back. There we go. So
Sorry. It's like the heat and my phone don't get along at this point.
I know, right? So Jeremiah says, actually, this is one of the hosts of the Real Talk. He actually mentions, great topic, guys. A sign of an abusive relationship is when she's consistently asking for money or material things and putting unnecessary. The emphasis is on unnecessary, unnecessary
Mhm.
pressure on you. What is your advice to men who may sometimes face this challenge in relationships? Jeremiah, continue being a prophet. That's a very good one. So, colleagues, please note that down. We've got Chris Turner saying we're following the program from Choma. Interesting. Don't forget to share the links. We've got okay, we've got one saying we're watching from Chikankata. We have got yes, they make you have low self-esteem. Narcissists do that a lot. Mindy is saying relationship abuse can be treating your partner with violence, disrespect, cruelty, harm, or force. Examples could be sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, material abuse. Usually, this comes with a lot of threats, intimidation from the abusive partner. That's interesting. I love that perspective. A sign of an abusive relationship is when a man makes you do things he himself wants not he himself wants, not things that you want to do, just because he provides fear, I think, FIA. And Jeremiah is a stingy man and abuser. Jeremiah is an interesting fellow. Another common sign of an abusive relationship is when your partner only wants you to do things that only, oh yeah, that only he or she wants. Both parties' opinions matter. Gabriel from Chomo. Gabriel is actually, so this is very interesting. So I actually do agree with Gabriel. Like it's a two-way thing. It's not exactly only when the man wants you to do things. Like I feel women too can be abusive in a relationship. So
Yes.
we'll start with Jeremiah, because Jeremiah has brought us some very interesting sentiments in this conversation. Um, Jeremiah's first question was, what your advice to men who sometimes face this challenge of where the female is consistently asking for money, right, and material things, and they're applying the emphasis on unnecessary pressure on you. Like the pressure is not necessary, but they're doing that. What is your advice to such kind of a man? And then we can also probably respond to, is a stingy man an abuser? We'll start with you, Linda, because you left us earlier, and then we'll go.
Okay, so from Jeremiah's question, I feel to some extent they are relationships that become emotionally straight draining for you if she's constantly asking for money and unnecessary pressure on you, because in a relationship a partner is supposed to be someone who understands, yeah. So there are certain things that you know you'd ask your partner to do, that you know in their capacity they can afford to do those things, but then it gets emotionally draining when you start to know that it's not in his capacity, and or it's not in her capacity, and you're asking for things that are going to start to stress them. Some things are just done to frustrate another partner, yeah. Because let me give you an example of, here's a lady that says, I want 10,000 for my hair, whatnot. And then this is, you're asking a boyfriend who doesn't work or do anything. So some things are just meant to frustrate certain people. So that's really toxic for you to do, because I feel in relationships you discuss certain things such as your finances, your emotional well-being and all that. So if you know someone's capacity, you cannot start to ask for things that are exceeding his capabilities, because that becomes very stressful. I think that's my opinion on Jeremiah's comment.
I think Jeremiah also asked if a stingy man um, comments on a stingy man. Is a
I'll let
stingy
Ruth
man an
answer that.
abuser? Ruth, take it home.
Okay. Um, I feel like a stingy man is not an abuser, honestly, because they're just some people who've got. No, they're just not abusers. If I may answer that, they're just not abusers. Because some people want to give and some not. They just do not want to give, and you can't call that a person to say they're abusing you. That's not the definition of abuse, Jeremiah. I'm sorry.
Well, I think just to also kind of speak to this, because we're having this dialogue and conversation. Um, I think there ought to be a difference between being stingy and exactly knowing how your tax bracket fits. I think, like Linda alluded to in the beginning, saying you can't ask someone who barely even goes to work that you want to have 10,000. I mean, people work with budgets, so it's not necessarily the times that people are stingy, but it's just not within their budget, like Linda had mentioned. Unless you're actually stingy, maybe that's a problem here and there. But interesting to actually hear that. Um,
An abuse, though.
what?
Is it an abuse if someone is not giving you money
Oh no, no,
or
actually, I
being
don't think it's abuse. That I don't think there's any entitlement for just dating. So legally, there's no marital arrangement and certificates. So, like you said, in relationships, you have to discuss finances. It makes you better
yes,
understand your partner and to what length they can go in helping you, to what extent they can actually reach when it comes to having financial support, and you also understand the other party. If their love language is money, for example, like what's your love language? Is it money, gifts? Tell us, so that you kind of get to know, um, aspects like that. It's interesting.
yes.
I have more questions for you guys, right? Because this is now becoming
Okay.
so much interesting conversation. So you know how we also have got friends around, right? That we have, and at times are important in relationships, either from an advisory perspective was speculating. So, are there specific red flags that friends and family should be aware when someone they care about might be in an abusive relationship? Because personally, right, there are friends that would know I'm in a relationship. Obviously, they have to, right? So, do they have to look out for? Because again, there's this thing where it's not all the time that on the men aspect, obviously, the notion is men are not exactly open about things. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking it's not exactly is every man to go. I think I'm being emotionally abused, and you're telling like a family member or a friend. So, what are some of the specific red flags that if and when a family member or a friend notices? It's giving them saying, you know what, I think this individual is in this kind of a person that they kind of better, find a solution and ways. And again, it's not just men. Some women again just prefer not to share their relationship problems. So that also leaves the role that friends and family can play in identifying. So what should family and friends look out for if they want to support out an abusive relationship? We'll start with Ruth and switch over with Linda.
Okay. I feel like the first thing that families and friends need to look at, the first thing is that when someone is in an abusive relationship, look out for bruises. There's just sudden bruises. All of a sudden, someone has got bruises. Where did they come from? They don't even have that explanation to give to say, okay, this happened. They don't have that explanation to give you. Just look out for those bruises. And the second thing is that if someone is just isolating themselves all of a sudden, they're in a relationship. When you ask them to say, no, my husband doesn't want this and that, my husband doesn't want me to associate with other people. Like if a person was an outgoing person and then all of a sudden that person doesn't go out anymore. Yes, it can be other issues, but that's another sign to look out for. So for me, I can just say bruises, injuries, isolation, those are the things that one is supposed to look out for if you are suspecting to say someone is in an abusive relationship.
That's interesting. Linda, what's your take? Again, is it just me or Linda is frozen?
Yeah, she is.
I think Linda is frozen. Yeah, I think Linda is frozen. So you've spoken
Okay,
about identifying
I can
physical bruises,
add on.
obviously. Huh?
Okay, I can just add on.
Oh yeah,
Because,
please go ahead and add on.
yes. And so many people, actually, the thing that I've noticed is that they develop eating disorders. A lot actually develop eating disorders. And they're always in fear of their partner. Immediately when their partner just comes close, they're like, okay, yeah, we're supposed to go home. I can't be here anymore. They're just in that constant fear. Like it's a loop. They keep going round and round. They're just in fear. Whenever they just see someone, their partner, be it a boyfriend, be it a husband, they're just in constant. And due to anxiety to stress, they do develop eating disorders. Those are some of the signs as well. So if you are suspecting someone to be in an abusive relationship, just look out for those signs. And I'm pretty sure one of the things I've talked about can outshine the other. So, yes.
So you're encouraging us to look
Mm-hmm.
for these things because obviously again there's this aspect of behavior change. There's an interesting comment from India again, and it reads another sign of emotional abuse is sudden loss of self-confidence or low self-esteem, right? And this also speaks to actually, so the Nkwemo Shoma also speaks to they're emotionally exhausted. There are these behavioral things that you can actually start noticing. And you spoke physical bruises that you can actually see. And obviously that puts you in a worrying position. Someone is whenever they like the one that you mentioned, whenever the partner just pops up with a boyfriend or a husband, they're immediately on their toes, like they are watching each and every move that they make. That I think that ought to be an absolute sign, and this behavior changes too as well. So, oh wow, Ruth has dropped out too. So now it's me and William having this conversation, and that's that's just what we're having, trying to have a conversation on here, the aspect of abusive relationships and how that absolutely works out. And we just concluded having a conversation on the signs. Okay, we have a comment here that says some of the Signs of an abusive relationship could be a controlling behavior, having a partner who is manipulative, verbal, physical abuse, isolation from friends and family, and a lack of respect for set boundaries. I think this is true. I think, like I mentioned in the beginning, we do have narcissists of individuals that will put you in a position of you thinking you're actually the one who's wrong. They'll control the narrative around you, and then it feels as though you are the wrong party in it, and that's definitely a sign of abuse. We've got Taminja again saying another sign can be avoiding the opposite sex because of fear of their partner. This is also true. I also feel there are some people who go to great lengths in just avoiding partners of the opposite sex. No, I can't be seen with that girl because they're probably going to like fight me. This is going to be a strong issue, even when there's nothing. Yet we quickly forget that the world where we live in, we do have males and females living together as one, and we definitely have such kind of conversations and associations. It's like when you find them, the thought is you're the only individual in their life, but when now that becomes an actual real issue. We have another comment from Wendy again saying depression also could be a sign of abuse. Yes, I feel that's true, and most of these things that we have to look out for in our friends and our colleagues. And I think now may be the best time for you to check on your friend who's been saying I've been stressed for quite some time now, and try and see, probably have a conversation if it's relationship related, because those are things that most people are not exactly open to talk about. And maybe the question that we may ask, and contribute if you can, but why do you think people don't open up about relationship stress and relationship trauma? Why do you think people wouldn't exactly go to their friends as easily? Why do you think they wouldn't exactly open up about a relationship problem that they're having? So that we also get to find out, why are you just sitting at home instead of you talking to someone about it and find a solution? uh, we are faith is following from trauma powerful conversation. Yeah, so we're still trying to have a conversation around signs of an abusive relationship. And if you're watching, please feel free to send your contributions on what exactly you think an abusive relationship is. Send your contributions on what you think are the signs of an abusive relationship. Send your contributions on how you think you can address matters of an abusive relationship. Let's just engage in dialogue on this particular aspect and matter, that we end up to be informed and make informed decisions later on. And I'm thinking, if you're still watching, I think we now have to look at some big part of solution. So before this meeting that we had, I think in the background we're having a conversation about there are partners that would have that would actually fail to hold a conversation, no matter how emotional it is, that they would absolutely fail to still remain logical in a conversation, and everything just turns absolutely emotional. And out of those emotions, you say things you later regret. You do things you later regret, and that's bad. So how do you think this can be best addressed? How do you think you can create an environment with your partner to sit and have a conversation that is meaningful, have a conversation that is productive, have a conversation that will lead to a solution that will work out for both of you? How do you think this can be the case? Feel free to share your comments and thoughts on how best this can be done, that all of us definitely get to reach a point of having good relationships that we're proud of, relationships that obviously we're happy about being in. And like, it's day in, day out argument, fights, day in, day out in fear of Kamasanga John is going to be a problem. If Mary finds me talking to Cynthia, it's going to be a problem. So there's that. Christiana says, but sometimes stingy men are okay. Okay, this is interesting. Sometimes stingy men are okay because, again, it's the way of training um, their partners not to depend on men, right? So I think Christiana is trying to speak to. At times, it's a little bit okay to be stingy because people are sometimes trained to not depend on men. So men feel they need to withhold a little bit. The other sign of abusive relationship is humiliating. This may come as public embarrassment or private behavior that degrade you or make you feel less of a human. I think that's true. I think there's some things that are done in public that should not exactly be done in public, but are just done to humiliate the other party, and issues like that. I think that's where it actually comes in the point where you have to have meaningful conversations with your partner so that you find yourself in a better space to hold active conversations that will produce meaningful solutions. I see Ruth is back. Ruth, you left us for a minute.
I am
Good to see
sorry. My phone was overheated, so I.
you. I absolutely understand that. So I think picking from where we last ended, the question might be Linda is also back. Good to see you, Linda. You froze off and dropped off for a minute.
iPhones and the heat don't go together.
I thank God I have a Samsung. Thank you so much.
I saw that one
Now,
coming.
I know, right? So to Ruth and Linda, like just to kind of sum up the conversation, I have two questions for you that you can respond all at once. The first one being, what should we do then about the science? What approach should we take to ensure that our relationships are no longer full of these signs and these acts and attributes of an abusive relationship? How do we move from an abusive relationship to a much more better relationship? How do we move from too many bad signs of an abusive relationship to good signs of an abusive of a relationship that we better enjoy the relationships that we have with the people that we actually love? I'll start with Ruth and then we'll go to Linda.
Okay. I feel like abusive relationship, how one should just move out, is talk to someone. The first thing you have to do is talk to someone, a person whom you really trust. Talk to them, explain to them what you've been going through, and I am pretty sure that person will give you enough advice. Unlike what used to happen back then, where people would tell you to say, no, this is a shipikisha club. If your husband beats you, they love you. No, that's not the truth. If a husband beats you or a boyfriend beats you, they don't love you. That's an abuser. Leave. Go to organizations which offer help. You can go to victim support in Zambia. They will offer you enough help for you to live. But living an abusive relationship, it's actually easy for someone who hasn't been in one to just say, okay, why don't you leave? It's rather difficult for someone to just leave an abuser because they're used to being abused. They're used to that pattern of just someone controlling them. And yeah, the first thing you have to do if you are ready to move on, make sure you take baby steps because there's no rush. Take baby steps, make sure you talk to someone, explain to them what you are going through. And yes, if the person is threatening you, humiliating you in any way, or telling you, say, if you just leave me, I'll kill myself, let them kill themselves. They'll even maybe just lift you off the burden. And trust me, that person won't even do that because they're just trying to threaten you. So just leave and seek support. The police will be there to help you out in any way possible. Don't be a victim. So that's the only thing I can say.
It's absolutely interesting. Now I'm thinking again, is Linda here or you frozen? Oh, there we go.
I am
It
here.
works.
Okay, like Ruth has mentioned, it's not the easiest thing for someone to just get up and walk away because we're looking at someone who's been isolated from their loved ones, someone who's been manipulated. So maybe their self esteem, their self confidence has been walked over all over. So they're not really confident in themselves. Yeah. So it really takes a lot for someone to just transition and exit that relationship and go to safety. So, like she mentioned, for those people that are victims of being in an abusive relationship, you have to come up with a safety plan. Like, you know, that the certain abusive relationships that have escalated to physical abuse, it's just not emotional anymore, it's also physical. So, you know that when you leave, he's going to hunt you down and beat you up and all that stuff. So you need to make sure that you've got a safety plan of how you're going to walk away from that relationship. So you take the baby steps, talk to someone, find people that are supportive. If you can't trust a friend, or you don't have people that are close to you anymore, seek professional help. There are a lot of therapists in the country. You can seek for professional help, talk to someone professional, because then you're guaranteed. If you live in fear of the friend you're going to talk to might tell other people about what you're going through, because honestly speaking, no one wants to be pointed at as someone who's been in an abusive relationship or a victim of abuse. Yeah. So if you feel like you can't talk, or you don't have those supportive friends around you, your family, at least try to seek professional help from therapists and people that handle these cases in different facilities. Yeah, I think the other things she's mentioned, legal assistance and everything else, but the key step is knowing that you're in an abusive relationship and stopping to live in denial of he loves me, that's why he does that to me, or she loves me, she that's why she does what she does. So I feel it's important to take those baby steps to leave that. And since now you've been experienced what an abusive relationship is, when you're in your next relationship, you remain alert. Remember to remain alert, so at the first time you just notice those small signs, you get up and leave and not find yourself to be a victim again.
Okay.
That's
And
that's absolutely interesting. Yeah, Ruth, please say something.
yes,
And as you add, you can also just conclude.
okay, because you asked to say if someone is getting into a new relationship, what do they do? I feel like the first thing before you get into a relationship, go for counseling and give yourself time to heal. Because people tend to go to rush into relationships from an abuser to just someone who's really sweet, someone who's really nice. And if you ask a lot of people, they'll be like, no, this person is boring for me. And they tend to be the abusers. So if you're one person who's been in that kind of a relationship, please work on yourself, go for counseling, take baby steps, and just, just love yourself for who you are. And trust me, you'll be loved in that way.
Even got emotional when you said love yourself for who you are. I'm like, oh, you know, really did. Linda,
Yeah.
in your closing, what would be your one takeaway from all of this?
um So my takeaway is people really need to stop covering up for people that they love just because you have the feeling of love because he's your boyfriend, so he's gonna do this because he loves you. There are certain things that we want to overshadow in the name of love, which is very toxic for you as a human being. So I urge people to always be on the lookout when things become constant and it's a pattern of a certain behavior that's negatively affecting you in some way, maybe emotionally. You don't have to get physical for you to say you're in an abusive relationship, because even emotionally you can get abused and that can affect your day-to-day coping mechanism in life. So I urge everyone to be alert. Don't cover up your he loves me, that's why he does that. Like, let's prioritize our mental health even in relationship. Put yourself first in as much as you are in love. Remember to love yourself, as Ruth said, and put yourself first in every relationship.
Interesting. As you're concluding, there's a very interesting question. What if you've been in that relationship for years? Emphasis on for years. And you are hoping that he will change. I'm not even done, and Ruth's like, and you're
I
hoping
also
that he'll
don't
change
agree.
one day. What should one do? What should one
Run.
do? Ruth, these are like your last words as we conclude. I know you've already
Just
spoken to seeking counseling. I know you've already spoken to, but I'm taken by the. So in your concluding, respond to that.
no, if someone is not changing for years, why are you still with that person? Leave. I know the difficult thing about people in abusive relationships, like I mentioned, is to leave. But the best thing you can do for yourself, for your mental health, for your physical health, for every health that you have, is just to leave. Don't ever sugarcoat abuse as love. That doesn't work. The person will continue to abuse you, they'll continue to beat you, they'll continue to manipulate you, they'll continue to humiliate you in any way, in every chance they have. So please leave. Just leave.
Interesting. In closing, there's one thing I've understood about bullies. I feel bullies and abusers are in the same WhatsApp group for some weird reason. For a bully to bully you, there's something about you that intimidates them.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just something about you that intimidates them. So if they are the scared ones, so be the courageous one and take the step that is necessary to protect you and also protect the integrity that you have. Yeah, peace. It's interesting to sleep at night knowing that you're okay. Like that's peace right there. I like sleeping and then knowing early in the morning if I just walk around this John, I'm going to be kicked in the face. So get information, know exactly what abuse is. That's why we started by defining that. Look around for signs of what an abusive relationship would constitute of. When you are informed, reflect on yourself. Look at your relationship. Start looking at that. Sometimes you may be in an abusive relationship and you don't know. That's why you need to know these signs. Get to that point of self introspection. Try to have dialogue, seek counsel, and then move forward. At the end of it, we all want relationships that are good. We all want relationships that are profitable to all of us as individuals and as partners. We want relationships we can count on, relationships that we can build on, relationships that we are proud to say, have you seen John? Have you seen Mary? That's fine right there. And all of us are happy, not even forgetting the money part. So, yeah, aside making money, let's also ensure that we also strive to having meaningful and wonderful relationships. I've enjoyed this conversation, ladies, and William is always there with the sign language interpretation for us. Thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you so much for being here. Unfortunately, we're coming to a close, but please continue sending in those comments if you have to, and we'll definitely be there to have dialogue and conversation. My name is Eno, with Linda and Ruth, and with William. See you next Friday as we have another show. Goodbye and God bless.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.